wake up weather, so, or crawl to bed sleep weather, whichever. Yeah. We'll do Matthew chapter 7 today, as much of it as we can get covered. If we don't quite finish up, we'll try to get it next Sunday morning along with we'll get back into the narrative next Sunday. So we've had the 5 classes on the Sermon on the Mount. We'll get back into the actual narrative part starting next Sunday. How many of you are teaching next quarter? Good. All right, I have a favor to ask. We have 23 classes this quarter, where it's normally 22. If you're teaching, most of you have been preparing as you go along, I know, and made some comments and things. Would you put together a list of 12 to 15 points that you have recognized during the quarter that you think you will want to cover in your class, with important points that we've noted as we've gone through the quarter, and email that to me by 2 weeks from today, maybe. I mean, no great big rush. We have that 23rd class. Kevin's going to spend a little time looking at some pictures he's got from Israel. And the rest of the time, I thought we might share some things that different ones of you have come up with as important points to cover next quarter, and to see what we come up with as a list there. So if you get it to me where I can organize it, then I'll put it on the screen and make copies to the teachers who might want it, or put it on Google Drive and give you a link to it or whatever. So we'll share things around a little bit if we have that last class extra this quarter. Okay, Matthew chapter 7. Oh, my clicker's not clicking today at all. It's triples, 2 triples. Okay, I'll use the keyboard to take us back with that. All right, Sermon on the Mount setting. Excuse me. We talked about the part of this class already on judging a little bit last time, but we did not talk very much about this speck in the eye and the plank of the eye type concept. But here they are threshing grain, and you just imagine how a speck might get in your eye there. And there's a little picture of a log for the contrast part of it there. We did talk about this slide a little bit. Probably there's no verse that's more used and more abused than this thing of judge not that you be not judged. You can't judge me type thing. But one of the things we talked about is this is not saying I can't make a judgment about somebody or something, or particularly false teaching. We looked at that, all these verses down at the bottom of the screen there, and read through them. And so it's very obvious there. So we're going to skip this one. And he makes the point then, everybody's measured out to you. However you measure it out, it's how it's going to be measured to you. In other words, the way you judge, if it's harsh, unfounded, unjudged criticism, then that's what you can expect back in return. So those points we've already talked about. So I need to look at myself before I start criticizing others there. So then it came to this point about the speck in the beam. How much is a speck in your eye hurt? How much does it take to have in your eye till it really irritates your eye, makes it water, turn red? I mean, it doesn't take much in your eye to be irritant. So the speck in the other person's eye is a problem. That's not the point. He's not saying the beam's a problem, the speck's not. No, the speck in your eye is a problem. But what's the point? I can't address that speck in the other eye when I've got a plank or a beam in my own eye. So it comes down, I need to examine my own life before I start trying to deal with others there. Now, am I going to be perfect? Does it mean I've got to live a perfect life before I can make any kind of judgment or address a brother that's got? Of course not. But I'm noted for a person who is pursuing a righteous life. That's my lifestyle, is that of righteousness. What's Galatians 6:1 say? For brothers overtaking in the fault, what? You are spiritual. So, same concept. I should be the spiritual person. My life should be such that I am a spiritual person, noted for my attempt to live a righteous life. Then I can go to the person who has the speck in his eye and have him deal with it. And the speck in his eye, of course, represents sin in his life, which is part of the judging, the whole point that's being made here. So it's hypocritical for me to try to condemn someone else when I got blatant, obvious, a log type sin in my own life. Okay. And we're going to skip these. We talked about them last time. So then we get this part, and I don't know how you see this as far as the continuity of chapter 7. Remember the last part of chapter 5 when he's got, you've heard it said, but don't do this. It's the whole section there. It seems like a lot of things in chapter 7 don't really tie together as far as a running theme through the whole chapter type thing. So it's a lot of little pieces. And maybe Jesus wrapping up his sermon and got some points he wants to make here. But don't cast your pearls before swine. The verse actually starts off, don't give that which is holy to the dogs, or cast your pearl before swine, lest they trample them under feet and come around and turn around and devour you. To me, at least, this is the hardest verse of the chapter to understand really the point he's trying to make. I did a lot of reading on it. I stopped by and called Steve in his office and talked to him about it in a minute. I'll tell you what I've come up with, and if you have other thoughts, I'll be glad to hear them. You got two animals he represents here, the dogs and the swine. The dogs we see generally in biblical times was not Kim's little pet dog, okay? It's not, they're more, I vision them as the pack animal type concept here. Remember Jezebel's blood and the licking up the blood type thing from that standpoint. Savage, snarling haters of truth, that's what he's representing, those who have no use for the truth. And the swine was what to the Jews? I mean, what we like, a nice piece of bacon or a sausage or a ham, or not to the Jews, okay? It was not a clean animal, so those are impure, of course. Those who can't appreciate the value of this new kingdom that Jesus is talking about. So you don't spend a lot of time putting the truth before those who are obviously hate the truth and don't appreciate it for what it is. Now, let's read this. This writer says, religion is brought into contempt, and those who profess religion are insulted when it is forced upon those who cannot value it and will not have it. Which is the idea of putting the pearls before the swine type son. But the indiscriminately zealous have no need of this caution. But while the indiscriminately zealous have need of this caution, let's be on guard against it, too readily setting our neighbor down as dogs and swine and excusing ourselves from endeavoring to do them good. So what he's saying, there are people who aren't going to listen to it. There are people who are not going to value the kingdom, the new kingdom, for what it's worth. But it's because there are, let's don't take ourselves and automatically cast people into that mode. That's not where they belong. Let's don't use that as an excuse not to teach because, he's not going to accept the truth anyhow. That's the point. I mean, that's what I think he's trying to say here with these verses. Somebody got something different that I don't understand. Like I said, this is the hardest verse to me in this chapter to look at here and to me to understand. I don't see how it ties the context otherwise from the other things that are being said here. Jeff?
Well, since it's a sermon, sermons have to have a full thought.
Yeah, that's my problem with it. Okay.
Stuff just thrown together.
Yeah.
So verse 6 could be somewhat a combination of verses 1 through 5. Right?
Yeah.
If you go to someone and try to speak to him or her or them about the specks in their eyes, you have a log in your own. That's what he's really talking about. But assuming you take care of the log in your eye, and then you go speak to the brother or sister, they could be not receptive. And in that case, then Jesus says, you try.
Right.
But then they become the swine of the dogs, and you don't keep trying because it's of no effect. That's their decision. So he says, you move on to someone else. And so this could be connected to the first 5 verses in that, and an unreceptive brother or sister, if you're trying to help with the sin in their life, could be, in effect, the dog to the swan.
Yeah, and I even grouped 1 through 6 together because I thought 6 did tie into it. But then I got to digging into it deeper, and I kind of pulled it out by itself because I couldn't exactly tell the context in. But thank you for helping with that. Then he moves into this point about knocking and being opened. And a man's going to, his son asks for bread, he's going to give him rocks, or his son asks for a fish, he's going to give him a snake. And so let's talk about that. Ask, seek, knock. Okay? It will be given to you. Seems like it's a very simple statement, right? And it reminds me of the TV evangelist. Ask for it, pray for it hard enough, and you'll be blessed with all these earthly possessions type thing. So what I ask for, what am I looking for? What's the ask, seek, knock type things? I don't think it's earthly possessions. I don't think Christ is opening up here a thing of pray for it and be happy and live like I'm telling you to live, as the evangelist would say, and you'll get 4 new cars and 3 limousines, 8 airplanes like I've got, type thing, if you get the point. That's not what he's after there. There is a diligence pattern here. Ask, seek, knock. I mean, it's a progressive type thing with perseverance involved into it. And of course, there's a spirit and humility and sincerity. But what are we asking for? That's the key, I think, to this thing here. Well, there are some proper gifts we can ask for from God. James 1, if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who will give it liberally. Ask in faith, no doubting. So there are things we can ask for, seek for, knock for, pursue that Jesus would have us do for there. And the example he gives here is if a man's son asks for some bread, what's he going to give him? A rock. Well, no, not if the man loves his son. So Jesus turns around and says, if you who are evil, and that's a characterization is compared to what he's going to say about the Father. Not saying evil people per se, I don't think. But if you who are evil, earthly, will do this for your son, what's your Father in heaven going to do for you? You're asking, seeking, knocking. I mean, if you're going to give your son what he asked for, how much more wisdom has God got to give us what we ask for, if we ask for the proper motive, the proper thing? Josh?
Also, if you notice what the son is asking there for in that example, it's a need, something that he needs. And so if we carry that over to us, when we ask for what we need, how much more will
Yeah, and Josh's point is very valid. The daily bread, the son asking for bread or asking for a fish, what's he asking for? Something he needs for food type thing. So we don't ask for, Daddy, go out and get me a new camel to ride on type thing. I mean, it's things that have life, that we need for life, and therefore, God will give us those things we need, whatever it is.
Back to might have been in this class that we were having about a year ago or whatever, but when we were talking about Solomon, it just reminds me of that right there. But I'd say God's gonna bless you with other things necessarily, but when your attitude's right, you end up with other blessings from God too, just if your mind is where it ought to be, because Solomon asked.
That's for one thing, and got a lot more.
Like his heart, and that he didn't ask for those selfish things.
Right.
Took care of them in other ways to, defeat the purpose that you would be thinking that I'd get something out of it. I'm saying, And that, at least in that instance, Solomon had it right, and I appreciated the prayer of somebody focused on something that God be asking for, not something that he just wants.
Yeah.
to have.
Yeah. You're gonna counter what he said now?
No,
Oh.
no. Just as you look from verse 1 all the way through what we've read, it does have this.
I may interrupt you a minute there. Yeah, the very next verse says, therefore. That's what we're going to make next year. So go ahead. That's a good
I
summary.
always wonder though, if these, I've always looked at this verse, this ask, seek, knock, even for those that have not obeyed yet, those who are seeking God, those who have the right heart. We talk about those who have receptive hearts, they're seeking, they just don't know exactly all that they're seeking for, or they're knocking. And I think these verses, although it gives us this very physical, what we need in our lives physically, or I think too, it makes me wonder if, as we are trying to take the gospel forward, we have to remember that there are those who are seeking and knocking and asking, what is it all about? What is God all about? I know if you think about just someone who has not obeyed the gospel yet, who has a sense of spirituality about them, a sense of, I need to change something in my life, I'm not sure how to get there. They are asking God. They're having that conversation. They just don't know it yet. Yeah. I mean, there still is creation, and I think that's spiritually is where he's promising those answers. I'm going to find you. That's going to happen for those, and we're a part of that equation for those.
All right, let me illustrate that. I don't know how providence ties into all this or what. We'll pick on Tracy.
And I would put myself in that. I know what you're going to
Right.
talk about, right?
Yep.
Because I vividly remember in college having a conversation in my own mind that, as confident as I was as a person and this and that there was legitimately something missing in my life.
Right.
I remember having those thoughts. I remember having that conversation with myself. Could not put my hand on it, right? At all. But I can tell you as an adult, I had those thoughts and those conversations, and then I met Jeff.
Yep. And I've heard Tracy say a number of times there were things that he went to his Baptist preacher with, and he could not answer it. I was looking for answers. Now, is that when he met Cheryl and the ones that were with her? I don't know, but illustrates your same point. Okay, that's what I'm trying to do. So there are those who are looking and find the truth. Okay, verse 12. The well-known verse, most well-known verse, I guess, of the sermon. Most everybody can tell you what they think it means. Okay, or they'll quote it in their version of it sometimes, not necessarily the way it is, but therefore. So conclusion of some kind of the preceding verses, I think. Do to others what you would have them do to you. Now, a lot of times it's said, I'm going to do to you what you did to me, right? Which is not what it's saying, okay? Do to others what you'd have them do to you. So look at it back in verses 1 and 2. Judge others the way you want to be judged. Or in 3 through 5, do you want somebody with a beam in their eye trying to get a speck out of your eye? No. So get the beam out of your eye before you start to deal with them. So do to others the way you'd have them do to you. And he says this verse summarizes the Old Testament law. Law and prophets, as a matter of fact. So Leviticus 19, you should love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. And then in Galatians, that same point is made. The law is fulfilled in this word, love your neighbor as yourself. Again, in James, you really fulfill the royal law of Scripture. You love your neighbor as yourself, and you do well when you say that. So do unto others, you have them do unto you. What's the difference that saying love your neighbor as you love yourself? I mean, it's not the same basic concept, same basic point there. So think about this. Do to others what you'd have them do to you. Stop. What kind of world will we have if everyone practiced this rule? Can you see all the politicians in the United States practicing this rule? What it would be like? nowhere even close to what we have today in our divided political world. What would it be like if everybody practiced this? What kind of classroom or workspace place would you have if everybody there practiced this rule? Can you imagine? What kind of church would we have if everybody here practiced this rule? Here's the gotcha, man. What kind of home would we have if everybody in the home practiced this rule? You know, I would if they would. I would if they would. Can't say it that way. What you got to say? Where's you going to start? Yeah. It's not I would if they would. It's I will first. And that's what's hard for us. Because somebody's doing us wrong or not treating us like we want to be treated and whatever, and we have a hard time treating them like we want to be treated. It's got to start with me. And that's the hard part. That's the hard part. Comments, thoughts? All right, now it moves into the presentation of two gates and two paths. And the point is, we're going to choose one. You will choose one. You will choose one. That's the point. And only one. So there's a narrow gate and a difficult path. And what's the results of that one? Eternal life. The wide gate with a broad path, and it leads to destruction. But what's Jesus say about that one? A lot of people going that way. A lot of people going that way. It's interesting, the Greek word translated here, narrow, means to press in, restricted type thing. So with that in mind, look at this picture. I think it illustrates it really well. The narrow path. It's restricted as you kind of get into it. There. Then you got the broad gates with the big wide way that leads to destruction. So Jesus says, I am the way. I am the way, the truth, the life. That's what he said. No one comes to the Father but through me. I'm the way. I am that narrow way. I am that narrow way that few people will find. A couple other places. Peter said, there's salvation in no other name under heaven where men must be saved. However, just like Jesus said, most people choose what? That easy way. Not the narrow, restricted way. Without looking forward to the destination. So, you'll make a choice. Be your choice. Your choice. So what will that choice be? It's a question we all have to ask. What will that choice be? Then he warns about false teachers. We're going to disguise themselves and infiltrate the flock. It's interesting, the word translated beware. If I holler at you, watch out, well, you're going to do two things. You're going to duck, okay, because of the protection, the warning to watch out, but you're also going to duck because it's a command type thing to watch out. This word beware here is kind of like that. It's a warning, it's a command, both. So I'm warning you to beware, but I'm also telling you to beware. Constantly on alert. And the reason is that false prophets are deceptive. They always have been, and they always will be. And there's no getting around it. Okay. 27, 24. I can't tell you which three don't. But I read 24 out of the 27 New Testament books warn about false prophets. false teachers. A lot. And one of the most popular ones, of course, is Acts 20, verse 28, where Paul is meeting with the Ephesian elders, and he tells them to take heed to yourselves and all the flock. We all know that verse, passage there. Because they're going to be among yourselves, speak those who speak perverse things. Savage wolves are going to come in after my departure. So it's the same type thought that Jesus has got here. And if they were easy to watch and find, there would be a need for this continual warning that we get through 24 out of the 27 books. So there must be some problem in trying to spot false teachers. Here's a ravaging wolf coming out to get them. So, how do we recognize false teachers?
Those who are trying to make God's law wide.
Yeah, trying to get the wide gate, right? Jesus does it here for us. He does it with fruit trees comparisons, okay? He says, how do you know when an apple tree is producing apples? Because at some point, somebody showed you this is an apple and it comes from this apple tree, right? So when you see a tree that has apples on it, what do you know? That's an apple tree, okay? I mean, you learn that type of thing. So the next question is then, how do you know when a person is teaching the truth? Because I've got to know what the truth is, right? All right, Jeff, your turn. How did they teach to recognize the money? Jeff did a sermon many years ago. When he worked at the bank, they taught them how to recognize counterfeit money. By doing what?
Well, we did study all the fake stuff because you can never get through all the error. We were taught to recognize what a genuine currency note was. We were taught the attributes of it, what it felt like, what was on it. And once you learn the genuine article, then whatever's not that is false.
Same concept. Now, there are those who want to, and there's some value to this, they're to know things about false religions and false teachings so they can help recognize it. I understand that. And probably if there was some currency circulating at that current time that had this counterfeit traits, they might talk about that too. But there are those who want to dig in and know everything about every false religion. Get the truth. Spend your time learning the truth. If you know the truth, anything that doesn't match it is not an apple, right?
It is interesting that neither Jesus nor his apostles or inspired writers ever encouraged disciples to study error.
Right.
It's not in there.
Right.
But we are taught to know the truth.
Yep.
And that may sound haughty to some who have a penchant for wanting to delve into man-made religions, but the scripture doesn't encourage nor endorse taking the time to study all the error that's out there. Because where would it stop? There's never an ending point to that. But we're taught to know the truth. And so if I know the truth, then I can talk to other people about whatever the issue is. If I know what the truth says, then we can have that conversation.
And everything's going to bounce against it, right?
Absolutely.
Right. Now, you're going to learn in talking to others, you're going to learn what some of the points are of false religion, right? That's as they present their case to you. So you're going to know some of the things about false religion, different religions. But you all do it based on what's truth and deal with it from there.
I think it's key to point out there was error, even at the time, even as
Oh.
early as young as the church was. There was Gnostics, there was all kinds of things
Sure.
going on at this time.
Yeah.
But as Jeff said, there was never a time.
That's why 24 out of 27 books, we said, deal with false teaching some way. Yes.
Okay, so someone who they're changing something false, but they don't see it. It's false. How do you deal with that? Because if you go saying someone that they're a false teacher, not likely to convince them of anything, and they're probably likely to shut down on you. And just don't know how to deal with that, because a lot of them, they don't even think that they are teaching.
Sure. All right, let me answer that with this question. How many of us are apt to change anything we believe doctrinally? Not saying we won't, but we are apt to. So how many of those who profess to be of X religion would you expect to change what they believe? Is that a fair question? That's my point. I mean, we want them to change to what we are. I know, based on the truth. I mean, I'm not. I've talked to Steve and I chit-chatted about this time or two. How apt are we to say, oh, I was just totally wrong about that? Now, some little minor point that I didn't understand this verse right or something, I understand that. I'm talking about something significant. Not likely. It's just not likely. Well, put yourself on the other side of it. How likely are they to change with that? I don't mean we don't start. We don't try. I mean, I understand that and present the truth to them and whatever. But you just can't expect, Josh, everybody's not, they're not going to change.
It's a test of the heart, though.
It is.
So you don't have to put it on the other side, but it's a test of the heart. Do I want to learn what God wants me to do, or do I want to be right?
Yep.
And that's
It's the same thing to us, though, Josh.
I want mom and dad to be right, or
Right.
my grandparents to be right, whatever that case is. And all we have is the standard, which is everything.
Yep.
What we have, but we have the standard. And, you know, if your heart's truly all about what God wants, you'll at least delve into it and make sure that you're in line with what it says.
Which brings back to the last point on the screen up there. What's it up to us? We got to know the weird practice is right because I know the truth, right? So, okay.
I'll make a quick note.
Sure.
I don't know how much I'm stretching this here true, but if you want to know what Robert Swan is, I can create his verses for truth in front of them and see how they react.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And if if they're going to trample it underfoot, they're just going to
Ignore you.
disregard it, you kind of find out the definition of it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a backward way to answer the
Right.
question. Put truth in front of them, and if they disregard it.
How they treat it.
I know from what you were reading before, I don't think we're supposed to stand there and be torn to pieces
Yeah.
in there. If it's not, they're not receptive to it.
But we don't stop our effort. We don't fail to make our effort, I guess I'm trying to say. So it continues on to say, a bad tree can't produce good fruit, and a false teacher may teach a lot what seems to be good, okay? But keep in mind, he's still a false teacher. A false teacher is a false teacher. And I may hear a sermon from some denominational preacher, and he may preach on abortion. And he's preaching exactly what one of us would get up and preach. If I look at his entire package of what he preaches, what he presents, it's not right. Just because he preached one sermon that's right doesn't make him a good tree. The bad tree be cast in the fire. You don't get grapes from thorn bushes. You don't get figs from thistles. Figs. So Jesus says now that many are going to verbally claim to be following him. Lord, Lord, we did, and here's the list of things we did in your name. And Jesus said, no, my true followers are those who do the will of my Father. It's not a matter of what you claim to do and what you claim to do in my name, be it false teaching or whatever, but those who do the will of the Father. Philippians 2, where it is God who works in you both to will and to do his good pleasure. These are just two verses. We could have picked out many about doing. Steve had a couple on the radio this morning. He was talking about this. So then he starts getting ready to summarize the sermon, I think. And therefore, turn to verse 24. Therefore, and I don't know if the therefore here applies to the entire sermon or just some of his previous sections here, but he's wrapping up the entire sermon. And he does it. And he says, whoever, the New American Standard says, everyone who hears my words and does them is likened to everyone. So whoever hears these sayings of mine and does them, and Jesus compares this to, of course, the wise man who built his house on the rock, and the rains came, and the winds blew and beat upon the house, and it stood because why? Because the foundation was solid. It was Jesus' words. It was Jesus' teachings built on his truth. So here's a house, solid house built. These are the bedrocks for one of the walls in Jerusalem, built on a solid foundation. Okay. So then the rains came and the floods came and the winds blow and the house stands because it's built on that solid foundation. Then the other house is built on the sand and rains come and beat against it and it falls. So those who don't listen to Jesus do his will. Like build his house on the sand, not a good foundation. Storms blow against it and they fail because it's not on the foundation of Christ's words. And then he adds this little expression to the end of it there, and great was its fall. It didn't just fall, it fell. Because it's not built on that solid foundation. He who hears my words and does them. The words of the entire sermon, the words of part of it, Jesus' words overall, ever how you want to apply it there. He who does the will of God abides forever. So, sum it up. Everybody's got to make some choices. You're going to choose one of two gates, one of two ways, one of two groups of people, the few or the many. You're going to choose one of two kinds of prophets, false prophets or true prophets, one of good fruit or bad fruit, two builders, two ways to respond to it, and two destinations. Only one. A lot of choices. They all fall down overall into one. So then he ends his sermon. And when he ends his sermon, the people are amazed. The last verse in the chapter. We talk like one having authority, a different kind of authority from what they're used to hearing the scribes teach with. So one translation says the teachers of the law, what they had there. Impressed by his words. However, we're going to keep, as we go through, we're going to find that more and more reject his words. Oh, that broad way again. That broad way. So, us. We spent 5 class periods now looking at this sermon. How impressed are we with his words? Okay. Are we willing to do what he says? That's an application, lesson for us. Know the truth and do it. Never do we read, just know the truth and that's all there is to it. That's always the doing part of it. I don't care if anyone will call us legalist, because we talk about keeping commandments, that's okay. But there are commandments to be kept. If you love me, keep my commandments. All right, we got, according to that clock, about 60 seconds. When we'll wrap something up.
I think what Josh was talking about, our job is to plant and water. And if we, I think I heard Judy say this one time in ladies class, have you considered this passage? Just drop that seed and go away. And the other thing is, Pharaoh, in the time of the plagues, he saw it over and over and over again. Finally, one time he said, okay, and followed through, and he immediately quit. So not everybody's going to have a change of heart.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's better to work gradually and plant the seed, let the seed take its course, than to get into a knockdown, drag out, and starve it. You're not going to gain anything with that. So. All right, if you've got your little syllabus thing, we'll get back into the narrative next time. The centurion who wants his servant healed will be next Sunday, Wednesday night, she'll be singing at night. So Thank you very much for all your input this morning.